Hello, lighting people. Today, we're joined by two people who just put a major stake in the ground. In an open letter that turned heads of many lighting industry stakeholders, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, also known as NAILD, called on the DLC, DesignLights Consortium, to make some drastic changes and to leave the industry entirely by the year 2030. The language was sharp, demands were bold. DLC, for its part, responded with a more measured statement, reaffirming its value to the industry and energy efficiency stakeholders. So we thought it would be a good idea to dig into the thinking behind this letter. Why now? Why in this tone? And what they think the future of lighting industry rebates certification should really look like. So we're pleased to be joined by NAILD President Matt Honson of Thayer Energy Solutions, and we're also joined by the Chairman of NAILD's DLC Committee, Devin Wall of Louvers International. Matt, Devin, hello, and thank you for joining us today for 5 big questions. Matt, let's start with you. First of all, before we dig into the issue here, what is it that you do in the industry? What is your job as a lighting person day to day?
Al, hi. I am a project manager at Thayer Energy Solutions. We do lighting retrofits and EVCs.
Okay, so the lighting retrofits is obviously right on topic here with not only what NAILD does, but what this position statement does. When you think about all the things that NAILD could be doing to advocate for independent lighting distributors, what made this issue such a priority versus some of the other things you folks work on?
Well, it's been a priority for NAILD for quite some time, and we've not just me. I've only been with NAILD for a short time, but NAILD has been trying to get a hold and get some answers from the DLC for quite some time, well before me, and it's gotten to the point where we need answers. We need some resolution to this. I, as the president, represent the interests of our membership, and the DLC is the topic that comes up the most. And so we thought, as the NAILD board, that the time is now, and so that's why we decided to address it in a stronger way than we have in the past.
Yeah, this is certainly something that NAILD has made statements on in the past, whether it's through the Get a Grip pod, which is not an official NAILD thing, but I guess there's a sponsorship there. And then when we look at Devin, transitioning to you, there's many ways to get the point across, and you've done this multiple times in the past, but this time used a lot of sharp language. And to summarize, your letter uses terms like a nightmare circus, a tidal wave of e-waste, even accusing the DLC of feeding off the industry. So why that sharp elbowed tone compared to other ways you could have gotten your point across?
Like Matt said, first of all, thank you for this discussion and bringing this light to the people of the industry. And that's who we represent, not only independent lighting distributors, but we want to represent the lighting industry. And looking more into it and seeing DLC and their memberships represent utilities. They're for the utilities. We're fighting for the soul of the lighting industry, from the manufacturers' representatives, the lighting designers, everybody. We just saw each other at ArcLight Summit down in Dallas. I mean, really good conversations and just learning more about lighting and going there. So you see all these things reaching out that's sloughed off is basically what we feel is they didn't take us seriously. And some other journalists out there say we're a small organization. We love that. I come from a small manufacturer. I'm not A, I'm not B, I'm not C, I'm a D guy. We're small, we're nimble, we're quick. So we take that aspect into saying, hey, I need to be bold and brash sometimes just so I can get the attention, because we never got the attention out there. And that is what we're looking for, is saying we want to open up the conversation, because I hear it from local IES Chicago chapter meetings where people are screaming. I'm like, holy cow, I didn't know that lighting designers have the same feelings that I do as a manufacturer. So looking at where it is, we needed this to be brought, and we had to come up with it a short amount of time because DLC 6.0 was launching. I'm talking to major tier 1 manufacturers, and when they have a team of engineers working on saying why all this stuff is bad, the glare metric was bad, they're erasing things. So they're kind of listening, but it needs to be brought out where it's more of a team player. That's what we're going for. We're fighting for the lighting industry, not NAILD, but overall, we want this to be taken for, the lighting industry has to have a bigger say. And when you're looking at how the DLC is organized, they have a board. They're really good at dotting their I's and crossing their T's. I give them that. It's really, well thought out. But ultimately, just like NAILD, every organization, they have a board, and the board votes, not the committees. The committees take the information and present that to the board, and the board makes a final decision. So looking at how that's structured, it's going, dude, I think their mind might already be made up, and this is all just dotting I's and crossing T's.
Well, like you said, this was done during that period where they were, getting public comments on it. So we'll see what the proposed draft looks like compared to the finished product, and see if there was any of that public input that may have swayed some of those paragraphs and bylaws or whatever being rewritten, perhaps. And just to kind of play off that point you just made about the board, Devin. So this letter was signed by each of you, solely the two of you. But what level of review does the board of NAILD have before that letter goes out, or was it reviewed by the entire membership? How was this letter reviewed and approved before it got sent out to the public? Devin.
We probably had at least a dozen drafts working on that and working with the management. Everybody were kind of pulling in, and we're actually going around, and one of our members called over 50 people of lighting from vendors and memberships asking these questions. So we physically talked to every single member and still going out there building all this up. So we said, this is, what do you guys think? This is what we're doing, how we're going on there. So we worked as a team, getting all these things, compiling into one and saying, this is how we're going in the multiple revisions of the drafts. I mean, we're saying here, we modified it, and, sharp elbows. I love it, because when you're the little guy boxed into a corner, you got to fight your way out. And that's what we think we're doing for the industry, is we think we're fighting for the industry itself, not just NAILD, but everybody else involved on the lighting industry, not utilities. We need the power to get to the fixtures, yes, but we as a lighting industry want to work with the lighting industry.
So is it then correct to glean from what you just said, Devin, that most of the membership stacked hands and approved this letter before it was sent public?
They knew what we were doing.
Okay.
We told them, yeah. So, and modifying that is looking out, and Matt and I penned a letter. Okay.
Matt, transitioning back to you now, when we think about the claims that DLC makes about having 700 plus rebate programs and energy efficiency programs that utilize their lists, and then you think about how it helps minimum qualifications for certain fixtures to qualify for these rebates. If they were to do what you said and leave the industry, what other ways would you see to help qualify fixtures to meet minimum levels of performance or other aspects?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the energy companies, they don't know lighting. So you would have to have somebody who's qualified to say, hey, these fixtures, these manufacturers, they meet the minimum requirements. I think IES would do a great job at that, I think that NAILD could help facilitate getting the right people in line to facilitate that sort of, kind of what DLC is doing now. But we don't like the way that DLC is going about it. And we think that there could be huge improvements, and there could actually be, whether it's the IES or somebody else, someone could do a much better job of actually making sure that quality products are being put in people's offices and people's manufacturing facilities. And we don't think the DLC is doing that. We think that there are major improvements that could be done without the DLC.
Okay, I'll follow up on that one a little later. Just appreciate that feedback. Let's get back to Devin now. When you think about the DLC, how you've mentioned that they haven't listened to your feedback in the past, and that this was kind of a more forceful way to get those points across. Is there a frustration that they don't listen to feedback at all, or that they're just not acting on the feedback of NAILD, which would be a different explanation?
I think they're always open for feedback, but they're more hoping for cheerleading on what they're doing. And that's what it is looking out there. And, since the DLC's inception, when it came out, I'm like, yeah, get all this other stuff and garbage out. You wrote an article that came out yesterday, but people don't even really care about efficiency because we've already kind of topping out. And so looking out at what it is, people understand lighting. It should be solely based on watts. when Intertech and UL, when you get these things, UL 1598 approved the light fixtures, we have to put the exact wattage and amp draw on every label. I think that should what the utilities should be looking at is a label and how much watts. They don't care. You can have a guy put 2x4 backlit panels instead of every, putting acoustic ceiling tiles. That whole ceiling could be light fixtures. Is that efficient? Are they saving energy? No, but that's how the guy wants to look at. So there's a lot of these things where it's going out there and seeing how it is wattage savings and lumens per watt requirement. I think is not a good requirement to go off to. I've personally done projects where I've taken outdoor fixtures from 185 watts and put them down to 60 watts. I was 14 less lumens. The actual HPS, the HPS fixture, 3,524 lumens. My LED at 60 watts, 3,514 lumens. So, but then it wasn't DLC because it's 60 lumens per watt at 2,200 Kelvin going through a white polycarbonate globe. So where is that? I go, I'm saving so much energy, but no one wanted to give the municipality back the money. They still ordered the project because they knew it was built here in the United States of America using the best components available, and still nothing. I didn't hit those requirements. So it's projects like that you're looking at and going, we want the overall wattage reduction not going out there. And so that's part of what the focus on is just utilities sell watts. We use them. Let's use less watts, smarter, wiser, and it shouldn't be based off of metrics. You look at the Illuminating Engineering Society, everything that they put out is recommended lighting practice. Why is it recommended? Well, they took a committee, they reviewed and said, based on these lighting design projects, we recommend these be the average foot candles at a desk in an auto repair shop. All these places are recommended. Could you have more? Could you have less? You can do whatever you want. This is America.
Well, it is America, and I guess if I try to put ourselves in the shoes of a rebate utility manager at a utility or an energy efficiency program, what's the best way then for them to have if lumens per watt isn't the metric? Shouldn't it be quantitative somehow? And if lumens per watt isn't it, what would be the metric, Devin?
I would say certified lighting fixture manufacturers, integrity certified lighting manufacturers. You're looking here since the inception of the DLC, 2,511 companies, 5.0 or before. Now on 5.1, 790 companies are listed on there. So that's a big difference from DLC 4.1 or 4.0, 3, whatever they started at. Now it's drop off. You're looking at some of these things that they do. They check a box on the warranty. Most of these Chinese companies on there, you got to send the fixture back to China where it's cheaper just to buy a new one and not to deal with the warranty for an irreplaceable field serviceable fixture. So these are things you're seeing and going on. I like it because when you start monetizing by product, that is something where instead of a company going out there, and I kind of like seeing that because you're looking for quality products made by people that have a footprint here versus just being on a list and saying it's a qualified lighting product, where that's confusion in the report that we put out that is actually on NAILD's website. I totally recommend everybody to read this.
Yeah, we linked to that in our article on September 5th about your open letter. We'll link to it again in the YouTube comments and in the Inside Lighting webpage where this is displayed. So, when I think about that, I guess I can't say that that's a bad suggestion to have manufacturers being validated in some sense. It makes me also wonder, like the driving force behind utility rebate programs typically is not because these utilities and energy efficiency programs are nice people and they just want to give money away. It's because they want to avoid future costs. There's a business case to be made about reducing energy consumption at the commercial and residential levels. And this is one way to get it done at the commercial level. So they don't have to build new power plants, or they don't have to rebuild some infrastructure to handle, more energy down the road. So we'll transition to Matt and playing off the comments you made earlier, and also referencing the letter where the letter criticized flickering TLEDs and other fixtures, and saying that basically the point was, the way I interpreted it, was that there's still low quality stuff out there that still meets the DLC criteria. So in that vein, I also think about how there's some really economical automobiles out there that meet federal safety standards, but they're cheap econo boxes, or a gas station hot dog that meets USDA standards, but it's still not healthy for you. So isn't there always, Matt, isn't there always going to be kind of a low end economical version that just kind of doesn't wow people with quality, but it's still, in this case, is energy efficient? And isn't there always going to be a market for that, whether there's a DLC or not?
Yeah, definitely. You can see that in every single industry. There's examples of that. That's for sure. The problem is that the DLC decides. It's based on if you give us a check, X amount of dollars per SKU, per variation of your fixture, then we'll list you and you can be used in with this rebate program. And that's problematic to me because, okay, yes, you're always going to have economical fixtures, but it's whoever can write the check that gets to have their fixture in the programs. And I'm not going to name specific manufacturers that we deal with, but there is a specific manufacturer that we dealt with for a long time. We love their fixtures. We think they're high quality. They have good warranties. They have good rated life, and they just don't care about meeting the rebates programs because a lot of people around the country don't use these rebate programs, and so they said, we're just not going to pay DLC the money. And being in Illinois where we are and rebates are everything, we have to go through the rebate programs, because if we don't, the guy down the street's going to do it. And so we have to run through the rebate programs. But what that means is that we can't use that manufacturer because they refuse to give the DLC boatloads of money to make it available through the rebate programs. And so we just don't like this. We don't like these tolls that they're making manufacturers pay, and then those tolls that the manufacturers pay get passed down to the distributors, which gets passed down to the customers. And it's just I was thinking this morning when I was in the shower, I was thinking about what does the DLC feel like to me. And I was thinking back when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to Chicago White Sox games, and you get to the game and you pay back then like $20 to park your car somewhere, and then you get your stuff and you're walking into the game, and some guy stops you. He doesn't work for the White Sox. He's just some guy, and he goes, "Hey, if you give me $20, I'll watch your car for you." And you know that guy's not going to watch your car, but you also don't want to jack with your car because you didn't give him the $20. So you give him the $20, and he doesn't mess with your car, hopefully. To me, that's who the DLC is. They're bullies that are taking your money, and you don't need that guy. It'd be much better if security got rid of those guys. But anyway, sorry for my long-winded response.
No, as I started my my role in the lighting industry, working in New York, and they didn't give me the glamorous Midtown accounts. I was in Queens and the Bronx and Brooklyn, and I can attest that there's other people like that in other states as well, not just in the 708 at the White Sox games. Devin, transitioning on and actually playing off of that. I actually appeared on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast a week or two ago, and I told both those guys, and I'll say it here, like I bet you a month's income that the DLC is not going to follow your advice and leave the industry by 2030. So if that's true, and if they do stick around, is there a version? Is there a version of the DLC that NAILD could live with and possibly even collaborate with to make this kind of more palatable all around?
Yeah, well, that version is 5.1. Stay where it is now. People are fine with that. We've been through. Don't push it out any further. That's what we said. Hang around for 5 years. Listen to us. And Al, looking at us, Matt and I do this as a voluntary base. You're looking at all the other organizations, IALD, NALMCO, the ALA, all these. There's a couple people that have, get paid, the people running and actually combine everything. But Matt's a volunteer. I'm a volunteer for NAILD. This is all voluntary dues paid for by vendor members and members themselves to be a part of the associations. So we do this out of the kindness of our heart to better the lighting industry instead of being like, yeah, we got to toll, take. So this is where, the difference between what we're running about lighting organizations, that all these, wonderful people, the IESs out there driving, the TM30 talks. I love this metric. I love learning more about it. The 4-hour course I took a couple years ago just blew my mind. And these are things out there going out. You look at the auto industry. These guys got to hold parts for 40 years. They got to be able to produce a car part for 40 years. Well, you know how many replacement lenses we make for out-of-date fixtures that were sold 5 years ago? I mean, it's crazy what that is on there. I shouldn't have said that out loud because that's going to be in DLC 6.1. You got to have all the replacement parts going out there. They know sustainability is a problem. All these products that are out there that you can't fix or repair in the field, huge problem, big problem, hot topic I saw at that ArcLight Summit too.
Yeah, there's a lot more I'd like to ask and talk about here, but we typically don't make this into a long form video or interview. But I'm grateful to get your time and some more color commentary on the messages that you guys have sent. So Matt, thank you for joining us, Matt, for 5 big questions today.
Thanks, Al. We appreciate you.
Thanks. And Devin, I know this isn't the first time I've heard you opine on DLC matters, maybe not be the last either, but thank you as well for sharing your thoughts today. And thank you for joining us for 5 big questions.
Al, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Always good to see and talk with you, man.
Likewise. We'll see you guys next time.